Hey everybody, it's Captain Kyle. I'm here with Robert Duncan McNeill. You might know him from Voyager. You might know him from Chuck. You might know him from Masters of the Universe. And he's an incredible director as well. And he is going to be at Shore Leave 43, which is July 7th through the 9th in Hunt Valley, Maryland. And we get to chat with him ahead of time. How you doing today, Robbie?
I'm good. I'm great. Sorry, I was late joining you. I apologize. I was on the phone with a tax man, and a couple of things you can't avoid in life. Taxes is one of them. So I got caught up there. But here we are, and you're on the bridge. You're on duty. I am not. I'm relaxing in my office. So
That's okay. We're sending you around some other ships, maybe the Cerritos or stuff like that. So, you can visit with them. So, tax troubles aside,
yeah.
I like to open with this. Other than the financial gain, what has been being part of the Star Trek universe done for you?
Wow, so many things. I mean, it's done so many things. I think, in my heart, the thing it's done is really made me feel connected in an industry where you kind of go from job to job. You're a real freelancer and things are very temporary. I started in the theater as an actor, and the theater is very temporary. You do a performance and it's over, and it's just in your memory and the audience's memory. And then with filmed, entertainment, it was filmed, but a lot of shows I did, I filmed the show and it sort of disappears. It fades off in the distance. I did a series called Going to Extremes back in 1992, right a couple years before Voyager, that I was super proud of and was really different and interesting. We filmed in Jamaica. I was there for almost a year, and I can't find that series anymore. I can't find it anywhere. And so that's more common in this business, is things kind of coming and going and being very temporary. So Star Trek has given me a sense of the work is kind of forever. It's people rewatch, and I've had a podcast this last few years with Garrett Wong. We've been doing this thing called the Delta Flyers, where we go back and watch, and I've been reliving and re-enjoying not just the episodes, but the memories of, what happened when we made that episode and what was going on in my life at that time. And it's Star Trek, unlike anything else I've done in entertainment, has been the most stable, permanent and consistent kind of job I ever had. So it's given me a real sense of accomplishment and a reminder that, some things can go on, long after I do them and not just disappear. So that's one of the biggest things. And obviously it's also Star Trek gave me an opportunity to start directing, which I wanted to do. And since Voyager finished, that's pretty much all I've been doing for the most part. And that's been an incredible career transition to be able to direct and produce. And I was writing this year on Resident Alien. So expanding my creative opportunities in lots of ways. Yeah.
Very nice. Now, I do understand that, with your friends on the set of Voyager, occasionally there'd be a few pranks. There'd be someone singing in your face. I talked to Tim Russ, and he said getting you was difficult for him because you were generally sitting in front of him.
Yes.
Two things: any fun gets that you got with Tim that you could relate, and as a director, are you less tolerant of such antics?
Wow. Yes. I recently discovered a home video I had made one day. I guess I'd gotten a new video camera and I was filming all day on set. It was Ethan Phillips' very last day in season 7. His last episode was Homestead, I think. And so I decided to film him all day. And I'm looking at this footage and I'm, filming the rehearsals and forgetting my lines and and Kate at one point is like, "What are you doing? Like, pay attention. What are you?" I looked at that and I thought, God, we were in many ways so undisciplined and silly and so caught up in our friendships and relationships that sometimes the work was definitely second to enjoying ourselves and having a good time. Yeah, now I think as a producer and a director, if I saw the same behavior that I did on that set, if I saw that with some of my actors now, I definitely would have a respectful but clear conversation about, hey, we're here working and we got to focus on the work. So, yeah, I don't know how they put up with us. We were a handful for sure.
So any good? I think Tim mentioned that you were like in sick bay on a bed, and he like sang.
He did his break. Yeah, he it was early first season or second season. He did a mind meld. I think it was maybe his first mind meld on the show. And so all day he set it up really good. He's like, I really, I want to do justice to the memory, to Leonard Nimoy and his work and the mythology of the show. It's just, this is really important to me to do this right. And so he really set it up. So when we got to his first close-up of the mind meld, and I think it was a 2-shot with he and I in the frame, and he leaned down and put his hands on me, and he started sort of shaking a little and lots of dramatic faces. And then he broke out very loudly, inches from my face, into James Brown's song, I Feel Good, and started singing. And we were rolling and no one knew it was coming. And the sound guys were like, he screamed really loud and started singing. So he got me good on that one. I think my things tended to be more spontaneous. I didn't sort of plan gags. The only time I planned a gag was I had a cold one time. And I was I was working, because we always, back then, we would just go to work if you were sick. If you weren't in a hospital, you were at work. And so I had a cold, and my nose was very stuffy, and, people knew that. And I'd gone into the makeup trailer for some touch-ups or something, and I saw the glue container for the prosthetic glue they used sitting on the station there with Scott, our makeup artist. And the dried glue around the edges looked like snot to me, because I had been, stuffy and blowing my nose. I was like, oh my God, what if we take a big chunk of that, glue it onto my nose like it's coming out, and then I'll go in after everybody's in the briefing room. I'll go in at the last minute with this giant booger. It was prosthetics glue hanging out, and I'll just pretend like I don't know. And so that's the only time I really planned anything. And it was, everybody was in the briefing room. And I walked in, I was like, a little stuffy for real, but I had this giant blue booger coming out of my nose. And I was like, oh, sorry. I'm sorry I was late. I've been sick. I'm ready to go. Let's go. And no one wanted to say anything. They were laughing. And I sat down at the briefing room table. And then finally Kate Mulgrew was like, I think she had some tissue or something. She handed me the tissue. She goes, you need to take care of that. And then I revealed that it wasn't real. And yeah, it was funny. I got everybody good.
You'd have like taken it and put it in her hand and just, yeah, that would have been fun.
Yeah. But my jokes were my behind the scenes antics tended to be kind of spontaneous. And then whatever happened in the moment that was sort of goofy and funny.
Sounds like, yeah, a lot of fun. And you would have hated your younger self.
Yes,
you've been directing.
I would have. I remember once when I was directing on Enterprise after Voyager had finished, I decided to surprise them. I used to, when I first started directing, on Fridays, I would wear a tie or something fancy just to, like, it's Friday, it's dress up Friday. I don't know. It just became a thing. And I did that for a little while. And then on Enterprise, I decided I would wear my Starfleet uniform, because I had gotten one from the show when we finished Voyager. And so I came in to direct that day with my Starfleet uniform on and a baseball hat and my tennis shoes. And that was my fancy Friday. And I directed all day in the Starfleet uniform, which they got a kick out of.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And obviously you meet a lot of people through the conventions and directing, and it expands your world. I do want to go back though to another
Yeah.
um film that you were in that had quite an impact on a certain toy line, Masters of the Universe.
Yes.
You got to work with Dolph Lundgren. You got to work with Courtney Cox. It was and Gwildor. Any memories of working on that particular film?
Yeah, a lot of memories. I was doing a soap opera in New York City when I got cast in that movie. I was doing All My Children. I was a regular on All My Children, and I got cast in the movie. And the movie originally was supposed to be a 6-week shoot. It was very tightly scheduled, and it was only 6.5 weeks or something. So I went to the soap opera and I said, "Hey, I got this big movie, shoots in California. I'd like to take my vacation from last year and this year," because I hadn't used any vacations, which totaled 4 weeks of vacation. I said, "Can you write me out for 4 weeks, and then we'll figure out, you'll have first priority for the last 2.5 weeks of filming, but I think we can work it out." And so the soap opera was willing to do that. So they let me out for 4 weeks when we started the movie. But Masters of the Universe fell behind very quickly. We fell behind schedule, and that 6-week shoot turned into something like a 14-week shoot or something. It was, instead of a month and a half, it was over 3 months. And so the soap opera had me back at work, and I would often be filming the soap opera in New York City, and I'd film until around 6 o'clock or something, and then run to Newark Airport and jump on the 7:30, 8 o'clock flight or whatever, fly to California. And with the time change now, it's only 10 o'clock, and then I'd start working that night in California.
Wow.
Doing the night shoot. So that's one of my big memories, is just the flying back and forth, and literally working all day in New York and then all night in California. Not always, but that happened quite a few times where I was just filming simultaneously in California and New York. So it was very exhausting.
Yeah.
It was very exhausting and disorienting. Just my body didn't know where I was and what was happening. But it was a lot of fun. I became very good friends with Courtney Cox during that, and James Tolkien, who played the detective.
Mm-hmm.
And those were probably my two best friends. Spent a lot of time at Courtney's house hanging out with her. We stayed good friends after the movie finished for quite a few years. But then life takes you in different directions. And so we sort of lost touch. But yeah, I could tell Courtney was going to be a big star of some kind. You could just tell that was a goal for her, and the other thing I remember, even though the film went on for over 3 months, we kind of ran out of money. And there was a big battle scene sequence scripted for the castle, when we all go back to the castle at the end, and Skeletor's castle. And there was a big battle scene with all of us. And they sort of cut that short and didn't really finish that whole giant sequence because it was super expensive with extras and stuntmen. And they cut it short, and they said they were going to rewrite. And so I remember coming back to do some pickups and inserts and things. And they filmed this final sort of limbo battle scene where He-Man and Skeletor sort of go into this magical limbo. And that was literally because they had run out of money to do the big battle. They did some of it at the castle, but then it went into this sort of stylized limbo, set where it was only 2 people. It was much cheaper to do that.
Yes.
Yeah. So it definitely was chaotic. I remember on Masters of the Universe, we shot for a month in a town called Whittier, California, and we shot nights only there. All the street scenes and alley scenes and rooftop scenes, that was all done in Whittier. And I remember James Tolkien's character had a detective car, and it had to blow up when the Skeletor's bad guys arrive, and they fire some lasers and the car blows up, and we go hide. And the special effects people had put so much propane and gas into that vehicle when it blew up, it took out windows 2 or 3 blocks long. Like the store windows shattered, and it was a huge explosion, much bigger than anticipated. It was scary. I remember I was on the street when that thing blew up at like 2 a.m. or something when we were filming, and everybody was like, wow, that wasn't supposed to be that big.
Probably where some of that budget went to was repairing all those windows and stuff.
Probably.
It's interesting though that you say that they had to rewrite according to the budget. I've done fan films, and I'm like, I always keep in mind, we can't do that. That's too expensive. Yeah. I don't have the money, so we'll just write it this way. As a director, have you had budgetary constraints come down and you have to kind of rework things?
Oh, yeah. That's 90% of the job, is trying to figure out how creatively to tell the story that the writers want to tell, and figure out where the money's going to come from. Because, there was a situation this season on Resident Alien, the show that I produced, where we knew there was a big episode coming down the pike, and it was something that we couldn't just go find a location. We would have to build a pretty significant set, and we didn't have the money in our season budget for that kind of thing, but the story was important to tell. And so we sort of came up with a combination of figuring out a set that would be modular enough that we could make it feel like it was 100 times bigger than what we actually built, by being super creative about a couple of hallways that you could reconfigure and some rooms you could reconfigure and things like that. So we spent a lot of time starting early in the season trying to figure out down the road how we spent weeks, if not months, talking about that story and how to budget for that story instead of changing the story, which the studio and a lot of the money people were like, oh, why don't you just change the story and just, it doesn't have to be at that kind of place. It doesn't have to have that kind of action. You can just do something else. And it was not as good a story. So it was worth fighting for that to really deliver something super sci-fi and cool. So, yeah.
Awesome. Now, CGI and, various digital effects have changed the landscape of, movies and TV shows. As a director, how has it affected you as you're shooting? Obviously, the acting is still the acting, but, with the different tools that are available, how has that changed your job?
I think the nuts and bolts of a visual effects approach to any scene, philosophically, it hasn't changed that much. You're either creating a new environment or extending an environment. We did all that on Star Trek. We'd shoot on a little cave set, but we would extend the caves, and shrink it down so it felt like it was in a big location. Or we'd put something just over the top of the set where you'd see off to the planet, or we would do that all the time. So philosophically, it's the same, a lot of the same ideas, but now the tools, there's so many more tools. In fact, today I just saw a short film someone had made. A visual effects artist had shot this little short film, like with some friends, and had used some of the new AI technology to create this science fiction short film that blew me away. In fact, I sent the link to my partner, my showrunner partner on Resident Alien, because I'm just like, this AI thing is changing the game so quickly. It's still the same kinds of philosophies, if you're going to replace an actor with a CG character, wrap them in a CG character like an avatar or something. Mm-hmm. The ideas are the same, but the tools have the cost has the potential to come dramatically down, and the quality and the reality of it, it's changing very, very quickly. So, and a lot of times just like Star Trek back in the 80s and 90s, Next Gen is Voyager days, things like that, DS9 days. Star Trek, these big studios sometimes get stuck in those old ways and they don't want to change. And, on my podcast, we just did an interview with one of the VisFX companies that had worked on Voyager. And they talked about how they had to convince Rick Berman and Peter Lortzen and some of those people at Voyager to trust that the CG, even back then in the late 90s, could allow them to do things that they hadn't ever before imagined, because they just wouldn't even try to do it. Space shots or, CG things that might happen. They didn't even think they could write it because it was so expensive the old way. And back then, CG was really just getting its footing into television and things like that. So I think that's still happening today. It's just happening with AI. It's happening at a,
incredible pace.
Very fast, yes.
Speaking of Next Gen, I do recall you being in an episode of Next Gen, but you weren't Tom Paris, or has that been retconned that you were using an alias?
The story, as I've always understood it, was when I played Nick Locarno, I played Nicholas Locarno on Next Gen, and he was the guy that got in trouble, hotshot pilot. They had thought about bringing that character onto DS9, and just decided against it. So they'd always liked that character. I guess they liked my performance. They thought there was something to do with him, maybe in DS9. And then when Voyager came up, they're like, yeah, that seems like a better fit for that character. But in the Writers Guild, the union for writers, whoever wrote that episode of Nick Locarno would get a residual, a royalty for creating Tom Paris, or creating Nick Locarno. Mm-hmm. If they put Nick Locarno on Voyager, that writer would get paid for 7 years just for creating the character. Not a lot of money, but they'd have to pay that person every week for the episodes. And they just said, we don't want to pay that writer that just did one episode for 7 years of Voyager. Let's just change the name and some of the details, and it'll basically be the same character, but similar character, but we'll change it enough that it will not be attached to that episode writer, and we can just have a clean slate for this guy. So a lot of similarities. I think in their minds there were a lot of similarities, but it's funny, they wrote Tom Paris, especially early on, they wrote him much more angry and chip on his shoulder, and Nick Locarno was not that. He was maybe slippery with the rules, but he wasn't he was a very charming guy, and they didn't write Tom that way initially. I loved how Tom Paris was able to evolve and bring in some of the charm and the humor, and for good reasons, rather than breaking the rules for, willing to break the rules, but he had integrity and character. And I like the way that Tom Paris evolved over time. But that first season or two, I didn't really love how they were writing the character. And I talked to them about that a lot. Like, I don't think people are going to like this guy. He's just never saying anything nice. And he's, the womanizing thing is just not, I never liked that quality. It was not a very heroic kind of quality. Certainly the way they wrote him, it felt very premeditated and predatory in a way. His womanizing it lacked the fun, I guess, early on. And then I really liked as he got involved with B'Elanna Torres and started being more vulnerable and more having more integrity. I thought it was a much more fun character to play.
Right. And much more difficult to take advantage of a half Klingon,
Yes.
So.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I kind of like to think that your character in Next Gen changed his name because of the connection to Admiral Paris, so wouldn't get favoritism and things happen between them. But yeah, you did a wonderful job as Tom, and you got to reprise your role in animated form. Which is
Yes.
very cool.
That was so much fun doing. I had no idea. They tried to describe it to me when they called to see if I was interested, and they were talking about it's a talking plate, and it's like I don't know what you're talking. It makes Tom Paris is a plate. They said, yeah, it's kind of like the collectible plates. We're putting it in the cartoon. One of our characters, Boimler, is going to be a fan of the real Tom Paris and want to have him sign his plate, but then he's going to start to hallucinate and the plate's going to talk to him and give him good advice. It's like, great. Sounds like a great episode. And I think people really enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely. And it was nice to see you, even though you didn't have to do the physical stuff, you were very impressive in that episode.
Oh, thank you.
So are there any new projects coming down the line that you can actually talk about with us?
I mean, not really. I'm contracted for Resident Alien to finish off the season we just finished filming, all the editing and vis effects and scoring, all that post-production stuff. And then I've got one more season with that show, assuming that we come back for a fourth season. So, yeah, my hope is I love working with Alan Tudyk. He's a phenomenal actor and incredibly creative and talented. Alan Tudyk's great. Chris Sheridan, who's the creator of the show, is just an awesome partner. So, hoping to continue that and kind of find a way to, if we get a season 4, to tell some more great stories there. That's been a lot of fun, that show.
Well, that's awesome. Well, hopefully another season will come.
Yeah.
Hopefully it won't be too delayed. The writer's strike is obviously affecting a lot of shows, and
yes, very much.
And I hope they settle that to everyone's satisfaction very quickly. Let's put it that way.
So hope so.
Anything you would like to say to your fans out there before we wrap up?
I mean, I guess I'd say this is the Shore Leave convention is going to be the first convention I've done since about 2019 sometime. I haven't done a convention in a long time. I'm really looking forward to getting back out there because in the meantime, during the pandemic, Garrett Wong and I started the Delta Flyers podcast, and that has been just an incredible deep dive into the Voyager episodes. We've interviewed the crews, the cast, guest stars. We interviewed the security guard team that stood outside our stage. We really got everybody's memories and stories as much as we could. And that's coming to an end at the end of this summer. I think our last episode will drop in late August, September, something like that. So catch up on that. The podcast, the audio podcast is free. There's a lot more bonus material and stuff we've done, a ton of content that we do outside of the podcast that's on patreon.com/the Delta Flyers. The Patreon community has been really amazing and involved in helping us make the show and the questions we ask people and just getting to know the fans. That podcast has been great. I hope we have some thoughts about how to continue the Trek podcast, the Delta Flyers, after the end of these Voyager episodes. So hopefully we'll be announcing some of those ideas and seeing what people think soon. But yeah, the podcast and the Delta Flyers has been pretty cool. So
awesome. So yeah, everyone should check that out. And Garrett, I just spoke to him not too long ago at the Galactic Tea and Icon, and we do our Shatner offs. We just talk like this a lot.
Yeah.
But yes, definitely come see Robbie at Shore Leave.
Yes.
43 in Hunt Valley, Maryland, July 7th through the 9th. His first con in a while since, it's been like 4 years. So we're glad to have you back on the circuit.
Yeah, I'm excited to get back out there and shake hands with everybody and talk to the fans. So we'll have fun.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. And maybe we'll see you at karaoke because they have karaoke there. So
awesome.
It's a lot of fun. So Thank you so much, Robbie, for spending this time with me and with our audience. And thanks, audience, for watching, because, without you, we don't have jobs, Robbie and I.
Exactly.
So thanks so much. And yeah, hope to see you at Shore Leave. As always, have fun and follow your fandom.
Hi, this is Bonnie Gordon, and you're watching Fandom Spotlight. Make sure to like and subscribe before the self-destructs in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just kidding. Have fun and follow your fandom.